Welcome to the Property Management Mastermind Show with your host, Brad Larson. Brad owns one of the fastest growing property management companies in San Antonio, Texas. This podcast is for property managers by property managers. You'll hear from industry-leading professionals on best practices, new ideas, success stories, and lessons learned. This is your opportunity to learn about the latest industry buzz surrounding property management, as well as tips and strategies to improve your business.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Property Management Mastermind Show. In today's episode, I'll be interviewing Maliece from SimpleBills, and I want you to pay attention to the partnership just created with Citizen Solutions and SimpleBills RealPage. Pretty impressive stuff. We answer all the questions about using SimpleBills in your business, everything from defaults to what it is, how it works, and how you can make money on it. So definitely a great episode. Pay attention. And welcome everybody to another edition of the Property Management Mastermind Show. I'm your host, Brad Larson, and today's guest, I have Maliece here with SimpleBills, and we're going to be talking about the integration that RentWorks has done with SimpleBills. We're going to give all the who, what, where, when, and what this product is and what it does for you. I'm very excited to have her on because this has been a lot of buzz going on in the property management world about utilities. And in this time of the COVID crisis, utilities have become a big deal. And so I'm very excited to have her on. Maliece, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Brad. How are you?
So glad to have you on. I understand you are in Atlanta and things are starting to open up. I mean, we're just starting to open up here in Texas. So we hope and look forward to getting back to somewhat a level of normalcy. You were mentioning that you had some hair issues going on already.
I did, but I got those taken care of last week when my hair salon opened up. So that was pretty cool to be able to do that. So yeah.
So you were just jabbing me because of my bald head. You're just picking on me to say, see my beautiful head of hair, Brad, that you don't have. I get it. It's a personal attack and we'll get through it.
So you didn't have to worry about that during COVID, right? So
no, I just had to make sure I'd stocked up on razors as always to keep the bald, shiny head rolling.
That's right.
So first thing we want to find out is tell us about who you are. Who are you?
Well, I'm Maliece, and I am EVP of Strategic Partnerships with SimpleBills, and I have about 20 years. I'm kind of dating myself a little bit in this industry. I'm pretty passionate about utility expense management and working with clients to help them find the optimal solution. I've been with SimpleBills now for about a year. Really believe in the model. I kind of call it the disruption of the industry because I do feel like it is the perfect solution for utilities, for residents, kind of improving that move-in experience for the residents and just overall utility expense management.
So prior to you joining SimpleBills, how long has that organization been around and doing business out in the utility world?
I believe SimpleBills is celebrating about 12 years in the business. It was born out of a need, more in the student / single family type of environment, roommate splitting. Most of our background has been in student housing, but as you know, there was an acquisition last July with RealPage that through that partnership or that acquisition, I should say, we're strategically able to expand into other markets such as single family and multifamily, bringing our solution to the table.
Perfect. Tell us a bit more about how it started and kind of give us the elevator pitch about what it is. So if we get trapped in an elevator for 2 minutes, you tell me all about SimpleBills. I really want to know that so the audience can understand what it is. So kind of give us the whole, how it started, where it is, and how would you describe it?
Okay, it started with our owner, our founder, and our co-founder who were roommates attending Baylor University. And there was that whole month over month dilemma on who's going to pay the utility bill. So the fact that bill splitting based on roommate assignment, that was kind of born out of that necessity. But basically our model allows for all of the utility bills to remain in the property manager, the PMC's name, I guess I should say. And then residents actually have an account directly with SimpleBills. So how we are different from some of our competitors out there is we receive the utility bills on a monthly basis from the provider. We extend a line of credit to the PMC and pay those utility bills without any pre-funding. Each resident has an account with SimpleBills with a form of payment on file. And so we bill those residents and we collect directly from the residents. And so what happens is we actually do truly remove utilities from the PMC's responsibility as far as collecting those.
Whose name are those utilities in?
The utilities are typically in the PMC's name with the provider.
Got it. And so one of the benefits I want you to really hone in on is this is why RentWorks here in San Antonio and Austin has fully implemented SimpleBills in our businesses here, is the fact that utilities never get turned off, meaning they are always on. So what kills us, absolutely eats our lunch, is when a tenant vacates for good reasons, bad reasons, whatever reasons. When they vacate, it often takes a huge monumental effort to schedule a turn on, possibly meet a vendor and or utility provider out there at the property to ensure that the gas is not left on or the water's not left on, pay a deposit, which is a huge expense. Where do you get the money for the deposit? You got to go to the owner. You got to use your own property management company funds. I mean, this is what I really want you to talk about, because that's the giant benefit that is, you guys are calling a soft cost, but it absolutely is a soft cost, but it's a huge win because let me spell it out. I mean, I'll just kind of give you I'm going to almost answer this for you, but I want you to interject after I talk about it, is that when there's a 2-day lapse or 3-day or 5-day lapse when a tenant moves out, that's 5 days you cannot do your make ready, or 3 days, or 1 day. 1 day delay, you cannot do a make ready. So you're costing the owner at least 1 day, maybe 10 days of rent or more, because you can't get the make ready completed to move in a new tenant, right? And that's how you save the owner money no matter what. You may charge the owner for whatever. We can talk about some of these, but the fact that utilities never get turned off is a huge win. I want you to tell us more about that.
Sure. So through our onboarding process, we do contact the utility providers and we switch all of the accounts into the PMC's name with our mailing address attached to that account name. So that allows us the opportunity to receive the utility bills from the provider on a monthly basis. So what that means to the owner or you, the PMC, is the service for that particular home or for any home is never interrupted. The account remains active in the PMC's name, so you never lose power, you never lose water, you never lose gas. The only thing that changes is who is responsible for that bill in our database based on the move in and move out information that is provided through your property management software. So yes, so what the beauty of that, I always like to use this as an example. It's Friday afternoon and somebody comes in and they sign a lease under your current situation. It may be 4 or 5 days before they can move in because you require that they contact the utility provider and have service established in their name. Well, with a SimpleBills model, on Friday afternoon at 4:30, they signed the lease. Guess what? They can move in. So that saved you 4 or 5 days of vacant costs, so to speak. Whereas if the resident was responsible to the provider, you would have to wait until the account was established in their name. Plus,
and that's good for the owners and the tenants. I mean, this is a service that the tenants really want. So you have feedback from the tenants that have been using this for a dozen years. You also have feedback from property management companies. You also have feedback from landlords that work with property management companies. You guys have seen this from all different angles.
Sure.
And what we feel this is a win-win-win in all angles that you look at it. Now, I want you to talk about a little bit of the RealPage involvement, because this is a big deal. This is kind of like taking, you guys were doing your thing as SimpleBills, and you went into the major leagues. I mean, RealPage is the major leagues. So tell us about how that's involvement, how that's going to help the customers.
Well, obviously, big picture guys for sure, and strategically can position us to diversify our portfolio. Like I said earlier, we primarily we're in student, and with the RealPage acquisition now we can strategically place ourselves to expand into single family. and into multifamily. And we are finding that our model is a viable solution for sure in the single family world.
100% agree. Yeah, 100% agree on that. And
Yeah.
that's been really exciting. So
Yeah.
one
So
of
the
the other
benefit
things,
is, oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the benefit is obviously for the owner, but it's also on the resident side as well. We feel like our model definitely improves the overall resident experience at time of move-in because service is on and the account is set up in the PMC's name. Then there's a huge savings for the resident at time of move-in. We all know moving, there's usually a lot of expense affiliated with that. So the fact that they have no utility deposits to pay at time of move-in, or the headache of having to contact the providers to get service turned on, is a definite added value for the resident experience.
So with the RealPage involvement, now you have a tie-in to at least the software from PropertyWare. So that's all tied in, somewhat seamlessly. That's very good for RealPage and PropertyWare. So that's neat to see. And then of course it works with all the other softwares, right? It's just a portal hub. You can log in and you can do everything you need to. So, there's the other software users out there that are using this. And as you guys, start to get bigger into the space, I'm sure other softwares are going to want to work some sort of patch or some sort of, connection service into that hub. You feel that there's Rent Manager out there. They may do that. Appfolio might do that. Rentvine's coming up. They're going to probably want to do that. Buildium was acquired by RealPage, so they're probably going to be doing that soon if they haven't already. Right. So those, Artie, I think is probably going to be doing something. So what I want to talk about now is the implementation side, and then we're going to get to some of the objections that everyone's going to be freaking out about. You really want me to talk about that stuff, but the implementation side is when you put this into your business, you can do it in a couple different ways. So we implemented it, of course, on the new signups, the new owner signups, which is easy. I mean, you're taking 1 to 50 at a time. We get 30 to 40 signups a month for new management agreements. So we implement those right away. Those homes go into the SimpleBills system one for one. And then if you want to make it easier on yourself, you can go back and start doing the renewals immediately. So when the renewals come around, either they're the rollovers or if you want to go ahead and make a renewal part of the process to where you're putting the tenant on that SimpleBills system as part of the renewal, that would be another form of doing it. The other really difficult one is just say, I want to do everybody right now. That would be challenging because you have to interfere with current lease agreements and go back to tenants that were never disclosed this up front, because part of this is, of course, you want to do full disclosure. We do full disclosure. We put it into our leasing criteria. This is what we do for our utilities. These are the benefits to you. This is the features. So we disclose all that to our incoming tenants. And then, of course, our new owners, we disclose that we use this system. There is a couple charges that we potentially talk about. You could charge the owner up front, X dollar, whatever that is for your market. Your market, you need to look at that for your market. And then upon every rollover, I feel you should charge an owner, and you could potentially even charge a tenant. Now that's debatable. I'm not here to talk about charges, but I'm answering, or at least one of the questions is, how do I make money on this? How do I monetize this to at least cover the costs of what it may cost or doesn't cost? I mean, there's things that everyone wants to freak out about, and it can be a revenue generator, money maker. And so babbling all that, I'm gonna circle back and make an actual point. I feel you can charge owners up front, and you explain to them the benefits. Say, look, because I'm using this system, you're not going to incur any sort of vacancy because of the utilities. And I don't have to call you and or charge you a deposit come a year from now when that tenant rolls over. And so it's saving you money in 3 different ways. 1 is the upfront deposits, 2 is the rollover and the make ready costs, and 3 is having to get those utilities turned out of your name. So what if the tenant moves in and the utilities weren't turned into their name? Now the owner's coming back to the PMC saying, the tenant owes me 1 month of utility fees, right? There's just a mess of nightmare you all have seen on the billing side. So that's on the front. And of course, on the make ready side, when a tenant rolls over or leaves, that could be another utility maintenance handling fee. Okay. That would go to the owner. And I'm not talking, 3 figures, I'm talking something small. And that augments and offsets the cost to put every single home into SimpleBills as you fully implement it. Because when people implement it, they got to understand we have 900 plus homes in San Antonio and Austin under RentWorks. It's not like I dumped 900 homes into the system. It's going to be a gradual, slow go. So it may take 2 to 3 years, as we roll over to get fully implemented. And that's going to reflect, slowly over time. And so I'm saying that I'm stealing your thunder because I want to kind of give the audience a little bit of how it works on our side. Now, did I miss anything from the SimpleBills side from what you know?
No, I don't believe so. We have some PMCs who, have a tenant benefit package, Brad, and we're finding that some of them are wanting to roll some of the fees and things like that into the tenant benefit package versus the fee on the actual bill to the resident. So obviously we're happy to work through that. We really don't look at this as a revenue generator from our fee structure, so to speak. We feel like the model itself and the savings through the owner benefits with reducing, the number of days of vacancy, reducing your turn time, eliminating those deposits every time the home turns, is the soft costs we're talking about that really do have an added value to the bottom line. So
one thing I quantify too is, let's say it's a $1,500 home, 30 days, okay, divided by 30, it's $50 a day.
That's right.
Saving in rent potentially.
That's right.
And the other side of this is, I know PMCs that put all the utility burden onto the owners upon rollover. I think that's a mistake. I think that we need to be providing a property management service. These owners hire the property management companies to manage the property, not to do bits and pieces. Okay, you do one thing, I'll do another thing. Let's make it a partnership in managing this property. I think that's hokey. I think property management companies should be doing everything. So including managing utilities, because even though you might get the cheap owner out there that says, I don't want to pay for this, I don't want to pay for that, we know that we're doing a very good service and in essence benefiting the owner
absolutely
far more than any charges that they might incur.
Right.
And so it's the burden is on the property management company in conjunction with SimpleBills to be able to explain some of this in the marketing side, but the burden is on them to pick the right owners that understand, how this can be a beneficial tool to them and never turning off utilities. It's a huge deal.
Another added benefit, I think, too, is we eliminate late fees. If you're paying vacant cost and on, your vacant bills and your payment is late or for whatever reason, there's a late fee. Well, our model guarantees that there's no late fees because we extend the line of credit to make sure those utility bills are paid and paid on or before the due date. So if there's any late fees implied, those are on us. So that's another savings. And we kind of round that up at about $20 on an annual basis per home. So you couple that alone with maybe a $200 savings on a 4-day vacancy based at $50, a day. That's substantial savings in itself, aside from the added benefits for the move-in experience for the residents. So.
Yeah, that could be justification to use the whole system just by right that point, because how many times do the PMCs take on the utility, take on the billing, and they missed a bill, right? Sure. And so now the giant energy company who could care less about whatever excuse you give them, they're still going to charge you an X dollar late fee. So who's going to eat the late fee? You're going to go to the owner, right? You're going to go to the owner. Oh, Mr. Owner, we missed a bill. We want you to pay the late fee that we incurred on your behalf. What's an owner going to do? Yeah. So the PMC is going to eat the late fee.
Right.
All right. Great opportunity here to talk about compliance, because, I see the DIYers out there in the PMC world that think they can do this themselves. Yes, you probably could, but why in the, would you want to do that? Okay. Why would you want to mess with the most highly regulated thing going on in the whole country is utilities? I mean, it's probably more than insurance. It's more than real estate. It's so regulated with lots of laws. I want you to spend some time and talk about compliance, because people need to understand this is not just you throw together some bills and you make, you charge tenants. There are some serious compliance issues that have been looked at for the last dozen years. Yes. You guys have adopted. So I want you to talk about that.
Okay. So we do perform a complete lease review. during our onboarding process to make sure that the lease language is in place and in compliant with the state that you're operating in. Electricity may have one set of rules, water, sewer have a different set of rules depending on how it's metered. If you have shared meters at the property, for example, if you have shared meters and you're in the state of Texas, you can't flat rate bill those, which is what we're finding when we're taking over some properties in Texas. Oh yeah, that's a shared meter, so we just flat rate bill it. But you can't do that's illegal in the state of Texas. So we look at things like that. Refine your lease language to ensure that you're compliant and we're compliant. And of course, with RealPage, we have a team of exceptionally awesome attorneys, legal attorneys that work with us and help us make sure that you are in compliance with those different states. Yeah, you get out west, you get into Oregon and Washington State, the rules become even more restrictive. North Carolina is another state that has some very, very, very strict rules. Back to the state of Texas, if you're, billing for water, sewer, you have to have a special addendum that is, approved by the state of Texas. There's just so many anomalies among each state, and we're very knowledgeable of that. Again, we have an awesome team of legal attorneys, utility attorneys that support us to help make sure those leases are pretty tight for you guys.
So let's talk about some of the penalties, because there's opportunity that, obviously you could recreate the wheel here if you really wanted to. You could create a system to where you can collect the tenants and you put the utilities in your name. Okay, we see the business model, and a PMC company that is I don't know, a different mindset, they would say, oh, I'm going to just do it myself. What are the fines? What are the penalties? What are the difficult problems that they could encounter if they screw something up?
Well, I'm not really sure the dollar amount. I've been exposed to some of that over the years, and I've seen penalties in excess of $25,000. I've seen PMCs completely shut down because they were not compliant with the state laws. So there is definitely repercussion and all it takes, Brad, is one resident complaint. That's all it takes.
Yeah, that's the scariest
you may
part.
think, yeah, that is. You may think, oh well, I'm okay. One resident won't make any difference, but it depends on the state. But yes, that's all it takes is one resident complaining or raising their hand about a concern that may not be clearly outlined in the lease.
Essentially, what would happen is you would, hey, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to charge the tenant, for their utilities. I'm going to charge them $10 when they actually only incurred $9 of service.
Yeah.
And so you're making a profit off of reselling utilities, and they're going to come in and spank you like nobody has ever been spanked before, because that's completely illegal. And reselling utilities is 100 years old as a giant no-no.
Yes.
And so it just baffles me when I hear people talk about that. It's like, why would you want to, play with fire? You're playing Russian roulette with a gun that holds 6 bullets. Absolutely. And you put 5 in there. It's going to go off. So it's silly.
Yeah, that's why we try to discourage, and why I said earlier we don't recommend, a revenue share or making a profit, from the service fees and things like that, because it is recognized as making a profit on utilities. So
yeah, back to the resident benefits package, as you mentioned, some people call it tenant benefits. We call it resident benefits. One of those packages is a great opportunity to where you say you can roll in some of those costs into one package.
Yes.
And so without talking, numbers necessarily, let's say there's a double-digit figure that you would charge a tenant every single month, and that can include insurance. It can include, free back rubs, and it can include dry cleaning, all kinds of cool stuff, right? Haircuts.
Pedicures, haircuts. Yeah.
Exactly. And by the way, it covers your utility management. That could be one of the benefits of that resident benefits package, which has been very popular.
Yes.
And it actually makes a lot of sense. It's a win-win for everybody.
That's
okay.
Right.
And so, just the insurance side alone is a win, but then you throw in other benefits like this, it makes it even more attractive and allows you to charge just a little bit more in the resident benefits package and still justify that cost. And, we're seeing that being very successful in our business. We've been doing this for 2+ years, that I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been very successful in rent work. So we really appreciate that and encourage it. So I do want to talk about some of the other objections. Okay, so the big objection, I'll never forget, and I would talk about this with you in the green room. I was first introduced this model, this idea in Atlanta at the Southern States Conference, and a couple of the key property management company owners that I know I'm very fond of. There was Todd Ortscheid, there was Robert Gilstrap, there were a couple others in there, and the first thing out of our mouths collectively, some might have been saying a little bit more abrasive than the others, but the first thing was, how do we make money on it? And then what do we do about delinquencies? Okay, we talked about how to make money on it, the front, the back, the rollover, okay, all that stuff. That's up to you, the property management company, but the soft costs outweigh any of the revenue generators you can earn. But let's talk about the big objection is what happens to these delinquencies. Kind of talk us through that from your perspective, and I'll give you my 2 cents.
Okay. So we feel like we have a pretty ironclad process. Obviously, there's an enrollment process that the resident must complete, which requires the resident to add a form of payment to their account with SimpleBills. And then our terms of service gives the resident an option to sign up for auto pay, or do they want to be responsible for pushing on the due date. And then they also, part of the terms of service also allows us to force pay. So if someone chooses not to sign up for auto pay and they want to be in control of that push, and for some reason they don't push on the due date, we notify them the day after that we're going to apply a late fee and we're going to force pay. And then 2 days later, we force pay. So we feel like we have a pretty robust system in place there. There's several touch points with the resident from the time the bill goes out the door until the due date, friendly reminders, phone calls, things like that, so that we're making them aware of the upcoming due date. The residents have a portal where they can go in and really see some cool analytics on what their month over month, expenses are. They have full visibility, full transparency into what's going on. We provide them with a copy of the actual provider bill so that there's confidence in the numbers, in the expenses that we're billing through. And then our delinquent percentage is about 2%, which is about very much in line, Brad, with what we're hearing and seeing as far as rent collections. So goes rent, so goes utility payments, so to speak. On day 30, after we've exhausted all efforts, if we have any unpaid utilities, then those are actually passed on to the PMC to collect with the next month's rent. We refer to those as our defaults. And again, it averages about 2%, which is very much in line with the rent collections. So
a lot of the PMCs, to be very frank with you, is they're just freaking out about the defaults. What about the defaults? I don't want to get stuck with, a small bill. And so my response, this is how our attitude here at RentWorks when we implemented this, is if they don't pay their utility bills, we are going to evict. Okay. If we have to incur a month or 2 of utility bills or 3, let's quantify this. Okay. Sure. My last CPS bill was $80. My last energy bill was $80. Okay. Let's take that times 2. That's $160. We're not talking 5 figures here, folks. Yeah. We're talking minimal amounts. Oh, and guess what? You got a security deposit. Okay. You can take those funds out of the security deposit. Somebody's going to have to pay them either way. Either the owner's going to pay them or the tenant's going to pay them.
Right.
So the security deposit is technically owner's money in a lot of different states. So what we find is you take that fund out of the security deposit. If there's any balance left over, that would go straight to the owner. You start over, you release the home, and you start from scratch. I mean, it's just simple business. So I can't imagine a time that RentWorks would eat that default.
Right.
Okay, I can't. I mean, maybe there is. I'm sure there's ways that would happen, but we end up executing about 45% of our lease agreements through a preferred tenant program. Right. Okay, this is not something you guys really are talking about, but I will talk about it, is we use Obligo. So it's myobligo.com. We use them as a preferred tenant program. There's others out there like Rhino, and there's others, that you might be doing self-insure, but essentially we have a preferred tenant program. And so we send all of those tenants that qualify for that to Obligo. They sign up with Obligo. So if they stiff us with the utility, we send that bill to Obligo. Obligo pays us immediately. They go after the tenant.
Sure.
So if you're super worried about defaults, that's another hedge against those defaults, is using a service like Obligo and or Rhino. Or if you do self-insure on a preferred tenant program, you should be making more money than you can know what to do with. You should go ahead and pay that utility, and you should not be in default at that point, because if there's a no security deposit option, that's where you have to kind of run that risk for yourself. If you self-insure, you got to make the money up front. You got to charge the right amount per month. And the hook is, the tidbit is, Mr. Tenant, would you rather pay $10 a month or $1,000 up front? Okay. And that could be $20 a month or $2,000 up front.
Right.
And so that's how those preferred tenant programs work, is they charge monthly in lieu of a security deposit. All right. So what did I miss on defaults? What else can you add on that?
Sure. One really key point of discovery that we found in doing our research and trying to overcome that objective with PMCs and / owners is we're finding that, say, for example, a home is abandoned or the resident fails to pay and service utilities are disconnected at the home. In order to have those utilities reinstated, typically the PMC has to pay the past due balance, not only pay a deposit to have service turned back on, but also satisfy the unpaid balance that the resident left. So, and a lot of them didn't realize, to be quite honest with you, they were doing that. They thought it was just all rolled up into a deposit. But when they started kind of researching their own records, they realized, wow, I paid a deposit, plus I had to pay the past due balance. So
And what
somebody
they might
has
forget,
to be,
what they might forget too, just to interject, is they might have to meet the service provider at the home.
Yes.
Which is a giant pain.
Right.
I just can't imagine that.
Absolutely.
Why would you want to do that at scale? At 100 homes, 500 homes. Why would you want to put that onto your staff to say, oh, by the way, you have to drive a half hour across town to meet CPS between whatever provider, again, between 8 and noon.
That's right.
On a
very
vacant
small
home.
window. On a vacant home. Yeah, for sure.
Crazy stuff. Yeah. So
all of that goes away because there's just continuous service to the homes under the SimpleBills model.
So one of the things I want to talk about, kind of wrap this up, is there's a newly formed joint venture partnership going on with Citizen Home Solutions and SimpleBills RealPage. And so I've been kind of watching this from the outside. I'm the number 4 customer of Citizen Home Solutions. So I'm a big fan of what they've been doing.
Sure.
CHS partnered up with a joint venture with RealPage and SimpleBills. So essentially how this is going to work, in my explanation, and hopefully I don't butcher it, and if I do, step in and correct me. CHS is going to assist in the sign-up process for onboarding new tenants. So they're going to set them up on their AT&T, their internet, their Wi-Fi, their cable, all those security, all that's good stuff that they may want anyway.
Sure.
And full disclosure, everybody, guess what? They make a commission off that. Well, no kidding. They got to make some money somewhere because it's a free service to the tenants, right? Okay. Free service to the tenant. Our tenants love it. They get signed up. There's a revenue share model that CHS has with the property management company. So you can investigate that directly with Citizen Home Solutions. But then that goes into the management side. So in theory, well, not in theory, in practice is how it's going to work. CHS signs them up and SimpleBills manages that monthly utility forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
That is correct.
And it's a really cool partnership. They fit hand in glove. I'm excited to see this because it's a really good solution. What did I miss?
Nothing. We're very excited about it too, and the fact that it provides, a holistic approach for the resident time of move-in. It just takes that pain away, one-stop shop kind of thing. CHS will take care of, like you said, what I call the ancillary services, and then SimpleBills will take care of utilities from the account conversion all the way through to the resident billing on a monthly basis. So we're excited about the partnership, and we're excited to see how we can grow and with that partnership, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, they really do fit perfectly together.
They do.
If you're interested in Citizen Home Solutions, contact them. Tell them you heard this information on this podcast. They give you a 5% discount. So give them the Brad discount. You get 5%. CHS will sign you up. And that ties perfectly again into SimpleBills, which we again have implemented here at RentWorks. So we use CHS, we use SimpleBills. We firmly believe in both those concepts. And I think it's a giant win for our tenants and for our owners. So
Absolutely.
I think we're doing the right thing. So any other things you want to add about SimpleBills and kind of good stuff going on?
I can just kind of share a couple of positive testimonials, just really quick and brief, from some of the PMCs that we have onboarded. We're hearing some really positive comments coming back that residents love the model. They love the fact that they can just simply move in, no upfront deposits to utility providers. So we feel like that is a definite win for your resident, and kind of improves that overall leasing process maybe. Owners, we're hearing some positive from the owners. The one positive attribute I think that this offers for owners is the visibility into utility usage for occupied homes, which is something you don't have if the resident has service directly in their name. And the ability to track your vacant expense month over month and control that, and maybe get a better handle on it, if you don't mind me putting it that way. But that way, as far as utility, the visibility into the utility, say you have some type of water leak or something like that, it shows in the expense on a monthly basis. Whereas if that utility was in the resident's name, you wouldn't know about that leak until after someone moved out, and you possibly have a $10,000 project that you have to repair, if you know what I mean. So
that's a great point. I want to bring that to light, is if you see a spike in water bill, this is very common, where you're paying $50 a month in water bill, all of a sudden it's a $500 bill. And if the tenant's on their way out or they didn't get the bill, that could go on for 2 or 3 months, just building. You guys can identify that and say, whoa, time out. We got a leak over there. Obviously there's a leak because the water bill just spiked 10 times. We need to get a plumber over there ASAP to double check and make sure everything's okay.
Right.
Great point there.
Yeah. So we're hearing a lot of positive about that just even already. So I just wanted to share those positive comments that we have coming back at us now.
Great information, Maliece. This has been a fantastic episode. I think we answered a lot of the questions that I've been seeing in the buzz around the Facebook. I call it the Facebook, by the way.
The Facebook.
I think we've answered quite a few questions. So fantastic. Appreciate you coming on. Look forward to great things between CHS and SimpleBills in the future. I think it's a fantastic solution. So appreciate you coming on, Maliece.
Thanks, Brad, for having me today. It was great.
This has been a podcast episode by PropertyManagementProductions.com. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, leave us feedback, and come back for our next episode.